Hi, Mary Beth. How are you?
I'm well. Joseph, how are you?
I'm doing well. It was a real great pleasure to have you as a part of the Choral Composition Intensive just this past few months ago and to hear your beautiful new piece. Congrats on writing that.
Thanks.
What we wanted to do now is follow along with your journey of where did you get started in your composing, how did you come about writing this piece, and what your experience was like in the intensive. So that's kind of what we're looking at over the next few minutes.
My composing journey started early in high school when I wanted to learn how to be a better improviser. So I have a jazz saxophone background, and so my teacher decided that the best way to learn how to read chord changes was to write over them. And so the first thing I ever wrote was a jazz saxophone solo with drop two voicing to the chord changes of Bye Bye Blackbird. And then I found a lot of things to love about choral music in the next coming like 20 years or so. And I stayed arranging actively all through college and when I first started teaching, but I stopped doing original work for a long time. And then I decided to rework a piece that I hadn't finished from college, and a group that I sing with sang it after COVID, and I got some great validation about it. And then I wrote another thing and it won a competition. I was like, okay, I'm a composer now. And so I think this piece that I brought to the intensive was the next thing I wrote after that. And I sat on it for a while because I was trying to navigate the composition industry like as a freelancer. And the only way that I really knew how to do that was to just respond to competitions and calls for scores. And no one wanted to pick up this piece. And I thought, okay, I think it's just probably going to live and die on my hard drive. Maybe this is just one of those sandbox pieces where I work on a particular technique and take what I learn and maybe apply it to a more successful piece in the future. So when I saw this intensive pop up and there was an option to bring a piece that you already had in your portfolio and do like a significant revision on it, I was like, this is great because I had this piece that I really liked a lot. And I also had like a major piece coming up that I needed to put like all of my time for new original work into. And I wasn't going to have time to write a new piece. So I really appreciated having that option to bring something for a glow up as part of the intensive. And it went through a lot of revisions, and it is, I think like at the core of the piece is still the same, but it's so much more functional now. And I'm so happy, like I'm beyond happy with the recording that I got from it. And it was 100% worth the wait.
I'm so glad to hear that. And for those who get to hear the recording, it's a stunning piece. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Let's let's kind of like take this step by step. So we'll get to the recording and what that experience was like. You mentioned that this piece went through a bunch of revisions. Maybe walk us through what was the process of going through those revisions and how did you find the experience of incorporating them?
Yeah, part of the selling point for this intensive for me was that Jocelyn Hagan was going to be one of the clinicians for the master classes. And Jocelyn has been very, very good to me over the last few years. I met her in 2023 through True Concord, and she's publishing one of my pieces this year. And so to have her there as a composer to look at the score from like kind of a creative perspective, she had a lot of things to say about, go check out these theories and these techniques, because I was trying to work in more of a less tonal space, not like maybe not all the way 12 tone, but something that was kind of more tonally ambiguous. So she had some great things to say. And then having Matt Nielsen, who's both a composer and a conductor. So he's got kind of like the two brains that he's bringing to the table in his part of the master class. He had a lot of pragmatic feedback, like a lot of like practical application things. Like, what is this? Like, the computer will do anything that you tell it to, but when you get it in front of humans, that's really when you find out how well crafted your piece is and how functional and idiomatic it is for whatever voice or instrument you're writing for. So to have both those points of view, like the craftsmanship and the real world, can someone sing this and enjoy it? That's the important part. It's like they'll sing it, they might hate it, but they'll sing it. Like, and obviously, like as a somebody who wants to get their music performed more than once in that piece's lifetime, you want to make sure that it's singable or it's playable, and it's a rewarding experience to sing or play that music. That itself, I can't put a price tag on that kind of feedback.
what were some of the things that you were surprised to find or were glad to find that, oh, now I know how to do this thing?
Sometimes my measuring stick for how hard things are is not accurate. And so I need more work writing for kind of like the middle of the bell curve, that pieces that can be sung by not just professionals. And so things that I thought like, yeah, this is easy. I can sit on like a high E flat for like three measures. He's like, yeah, but not everyone can. So what I ended up doing is that I actually ended up doing some part crossing, reducing some things to solos just to give other people a rest. Writing for the voice is a lot like writing for brass in that you really have to incorporate rest into the score because the fatigue thing is real. And so having that kind of feedback, and also it was in D, he's like, you should try this in D flat. It will make it a little bit more easy to endure from just a stamina standpoint. And then trying to decide whether it was going to be in D flat or C sharp was actually a whole debacle in itself. And the choir read it in C sharp for the recording, but then I ended up moving it to D flat afterward. And so just, when you find yourself in a not very user friendly key, just having another set of eyes to say like, yeah, I'd rather see C flats and F flats than read in C sharp ever.
Yeah, and these are the kinds of things I know for me, I've part of the reason that I've put the intensive together the way that I did, and specifically with Matt Nielsen, is that whether it's Matt or whether it's Jocelyn, just having these people who really know their stuff and they can just see things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see, I found that to be so invaluable.
Hmm.
So I'm curious what so we went through the process of getting the piece ready, going through the master classes, putting in all those different revisions. What was the outcome? What was it like being there in the rehearsal and then, or being there in the recording session? And then now that you had the recording, what did you learn from that?
Yeah. So everybody who was in this intensive, I think, got a 60-minute rehearsal and recording session. And what I know about my music is that that's a big ask. And so it really, I can't speak highly enough about the members of Brevitas who were at that recording session. Like they read the paint off the walls and they just have a really lovely, cohesive sound that they agree on. Like no one is fighting each other in that group. And it's all about kind of like the group dynamic. So yeah, I was just really impressed with how quickly they got the piece together. It was kind of like, I was gripping the steering wheel pretty hard while I was watching it. I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to be able to get it in time? And they did, with like several extra minutes to just grab some bonus takes. And the final product was just gorgeous. And the recording engineer was just fabulous. Was really good about keeping in touch about where he was in the process. And then, getting just like a really high quality recording at the end of this was like worth the price tag of the intensive alone, because anybody who has to go and buy music educators, conductors, college directors, community directors, church musicians, no one will buy a score if they can't look at it and listen to it. And like that's kind of like the chicken and egg situation that composers deal with, is like, who's going to buy it before I have a recording? Who wants to sing it before I have a recording? It's so you have to find someone who, an ensemble who's going to be brave enough to premiere it for you. And I love that process and just getting to put new music in front of people. So yeah, having a recording of your work is like kind of like the nucleus of self-marketing when you're a freelancer. So that that was the, I don't want to say the most valuable part because all of it was really valuable, but like that, again, you can't put a price tag on a good recording.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just between there, because there's the two sides of it, like you said, there's the everything that you learn from hearing your music performed, but then just actually being able to share it with people. It's definitely awesome.
Yeah, and hearing it rehearsed, it was because I sing in professional choirs too, so I had a good idea of what was going on the whole time. There wasn't any point where I was like, "What's happening right now?" But hearing hearing Matt rehearse with the group, the things that were going to be tough gave me some ideas. Like if I come back to this score before I throw it at a publisher or something, like this might need just a little bit more of my attention before we put this, the stamp, the final stamp on it. So that was also really, really helpful. It's just seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak.
For sure. So we talked about how you got into composing. We talked about your process in the intensive and the things that you learned from it. What are you working on next?
I am about to finish the first movement of my Holocaust song cycle, which is going to be premiering at the Ear Taxi Festival in Chicago in October of this year. My piece is actually going to be performed at the Logan Center on the University of Chicago campus. The piece is called Birdsong, and it is a poem that was written anonymously by a Jewish child who was at the Terezin concentration camp during the Holocaust. And there are going to be 5 movements total, and this particular one is going to be premiered by a woodwind quintet and tenor.
It's kind of a cool ensemble.
It is, and it's been like the scariest project I've ever worked on. I've worked on it nonstop since January, and I actually worked on it with my teacher at grad school this semester, and that was really helpful. So I can't wait to hear it. I actually get to hear it exactly a week before I get married this year. So October is going to be really exciting this year.
That's awesome. Congratulations on both.
Thank you.
Well, before we wrap up, I'm just curious. So we had this, you took part in this choral composition intensive. Who would you recommend it to?
I would recommend it to anyone who is wanting to learn how to write for the voice because you really do get like a comprehensive introduction to vocal writing in terms of voice types, voice qualities, ranges, ways to approach different textures and extended techniques. Like some of these extended techniques, like I didn't even realize like sat in that column. Matt's book is like the New Testament for people who are wanting to write for the voice. And I would say even people who have like what they would call considerate experience or significant experience writing for the voice, there is something that you can get out of this too. And there were little moments to, give feedback on other people's work during the master class, and there was some kind of side dialogue happening during the workshops, where you might have some information that you can share with other people. I think I grabbed 3 or 4 books off of my bookshelf and just held them up to the screen during this. So it's an opportunity for you to share some of your knowledge and then get some new knowledge back in exchange. And when you're a creative person, the power of your network is really tough to fully quantify. It's it's just really important to have people that you can put your work in front of that can give you, even if they're not at the same skill level as you, they might see something that you didn't because they're looking for different things than you are. So I I wouldn't say that there's anyone who is not really suited to do this intensive, unless you really don't want to write for the voice. But I think it's really important for all composers to eventually work with text because it accounts for so much of the music that we hear. And it's also, I think, just like a really unique entry point for audience members who don't necessarily have a musical background, but they have, poetry, lyrics that they can connect with. So I think everyone needs to write vocal music at some point. If nothing else, it's just a good exercise and another way to just find ways to be expressive as an artist.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your, support on that. And thank you for, again, writing us this really beautiful piece and getting it recorded. If people want to listen to the recording or find out more about your music, how can they do that?
Sure. My website is marybeth-kurnat.com. I'm under Instagram as m.b.k, and it just sounds like that. You can also just look me up by my name. And I'm also on SoundCloud and YouTube.
Fantastic. Well, again, thanks for meeting with us and good luck with your future endeavors and congrats again on all those awesome things happening in October.
Thank you.